Thank you for joining our Export to CSV from QuickBase to Box session. Just to let you know, we are here, so myself and my colleagues are available throughout this entire presentation to answer any of your questions about the topic, if you wanted to chat about technical issues or just wanted to say hi, and also a reminder that at the end we will also have live Q&A for everybody that wants to ask questions. Also, we'll be sending out a review this session link that will be posted in the chat at the end of this presentation for you to fill out the survey for this session. Hi everyone, my name is Nicholas Kynoch. I am an orientation consultant here at QuickBase. An orientation consultant works with our new clients to get them set up with best practices and really set for success on their first application. A little background on myself. I've been at QuickBase for almost a year and a half now, and previously I worked at a healthcare IT company, coaching and training our clients on our best practice workflows on the platform. Brief overview of our agenda for this session. First, we'll go over some resources that are always available for you. We'll then spend some time to talk through what this session will cover and some prerequisites that I think are important to understand before we get into it. Then I'll give you some additional background on this specific use case we'll be working on and give a high-level overview of the steps involved for creating this pipeline. I'll then jump into QuickBase and build out this pipeline with you. And then at the end, we'll have our live Q&A session. Our resources, QuickBase Help. So this is our in-product help tool, and we created one specific for pipelines. So the question mark in the top right corner of the screen when you're on the pipelines page brings you directly to our QuickBase Help. Additionally, our QuickBase community. Our community is one of our most powerful resources, and this is where you can reference and post to the QuickBase community where you post questions to the QuickBase community where users and experts alike are answering and reading these questions. It also is where you can find release notes and any blog posts with helpful tips and tricks related to pipelines. Additionally, we've created a pipelines demo app and posted it to the App Exchange. So there are 5 different use case examples within this app, along with helpful documents that help you build out these different pipelines. So in the App Exchange, you can search for the app Pipelines Demo, and then that'll bring you to the app and you can download it. All right, so Pipelines allows you to move data in and out of QuickBase with ease. In this session, we're going to talk through the steps you can follow to create and export a CSV report from QuickBase into your Box account. So at the end of this session, you will have a base level understanding of how you can build a pipeline to extract data from CSV in CSV format from QuickBase and move it into your Box account. Now the prerequisites. In order to really understand this session, you should have a basic understanding of how QuickBase works, including relationships. Additionally, you should know how to create and utilize QuickBase user tokens, as those are really important for creating pipelines. Now let's get into our use case in our step overview. Our company. So our company for today's use case is Fore driving range equipment. They buy and sell driving range equipment to all different types of driving ranges, both new and old. They utilize QuickBase to track their sales process, as most of their employees all are working from the road. The problem we're really looking to solve with this pipeline. The leadership team really needs visibility into their sales team's work and what they're doing on a weekly basis to really ensure that they're getting to their goals and that they're on target for their yearly goals. They use another platform to track these sales goals and really need a way to regularly export the sales tasks from QuickBase and then import them into their other platform. Our solution. We're going to create a pipeline that runs on a schedule that will export a report from QuickBase into their Box account for them to then download into their other platform. A little bit more information. So again, this pipeline will run on a schedule that will auto-create this CSV report to upload into that Box account. And the channels we will be using are QuickBase. So this is where we will find all our records that we intend to put into the CSV report and then upload into our Box account. The bucket channel. So this bucket channel is really powerful. It is a built-in channel that will create a temporary storage table or report or an object in the pipeline, which you can then use and access the data in for other steps within this pipeline. Finally, we'll use our Box channel. The Box channel is, again, Box is a cloud content management platform. And in this instance, this is the platform that Fore driving range equipment is using to export their CSV into their goal tracking platform. Let's get into the steps. So our first step within this pipeline is with our bucket channel. So we are going to create a bucket, a step that is creating our pipeline rows. So this is really creating our temporary table in bucket, which we will ultimately use to upload into Box. We will then go into QuickBase and search records. We will find the ones that we really want to include into the report, and only the ones we want to include into the report. We will then add a row into our bucket for every record in QuickBase that matches our search criteria. From there, we will prepare our bucket table into CSV format to be ready to be downloaded into our Box account. Finally, we will upload this file into our Box account and indicate which folder we want to import this CSV into. Just a reminder, at the end of the session, we'll be putting our survey link into the chat for you to fill out. All right, let's jump right into it. So as you can see, I'm already in my app within QuickBase. So just for reference, we'll be utilizing this task table, and we'll be taking the information from this task table, whichever criteria is met in our pipeline, and then downloading those records into a CSV format report to then be uploaded into our Box account. So our first step from in here is to go to our pipelines section. So up on the top left corner, you have the pipeline section. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. And once we're in pipelines, you will then have a create a pipeline link. Just for that, I'm going to click create pipeline. Now, the first thing that we need to do within this pipeline is we need to name our pipeline. It is important to do this because as you create more and more, you're going to want to be able to know what the pipeline is doing without having to click into each one to understand all the steps within it. So for this pipeline, we're going to call it upload CSV report to Box. That will give everybody an understanding of what this pipeline is doing without having to click into it. Then I'm going to click the checkbox. Our next step is utilizing our bucket channel, and we are going to define our table for this report. So I'm going into our bucket channel. I'm going to then go into our pipeline rows, and I'm going to grab the action define a table. One thing to note as I'm doing this is you're noticing that this pipeline is not starting off with a trigger. That's because at the end of this, we are going to schedule this pipeline to run on a recurring basis. So now that I've selected the step define a table, I now am going to enter in what this header separator is going to be. And that is just what we are going to use to separate each one of our columns that we're going to do in the next field. So I'm going to use comma. And now in the header row section, I am going to enter in all the column names that I want to use in my report. And these are going to mimic those of the fields from QuickBase. So I'm going to bring over client, and then I'm going to use a comma, name, comma, description, comma, and status. And then press Enter and click out of that. Now what we'll see is it's thinking, and what it's going to do is we then can click the More option to then say what format we want these fields to be in. And what we're going to do for here is we're going to use string for all of them. Just click each one of these. And status string. Great. Now we are done with our step A. Our next step is going to be searching for these records in QuickBase that we want to be brought over and saved into our bucket and then ultimately brought into our box account. So at this point, I'm going to go into my QuickBase channel. I'm going to go into the records section, and I am going to use the query search records. This is where you need to link up with your QuickBase account. So in this accounts dropdown, this is where you're going to be selecting the user token in which you have already set up to be linked to this pipeline. And in this situation, I'm going to be using my pipelines account user token. And what this will now do, because this user token is linked to my pipelines demo application, I will now be able to see all the tables within that application that I want to use right now. So as you can see, I have all the pipelines demo and then the tables that are related to it. And for this, we are going to go to the pipelines demo tasks table. From there, we need to enter in the fields that we're going to be referencing later in the pipeline to say this field needs to be this information. So again, these are going to be the fields in QuickBase that we want to call out. And at this point, we want to call out description, we want to call out name, status, and client. And also a thing to keep in mind that the order of these fields do not matter because we've already laid out the order of the fields in our bucket listed here. So in our report that's going to be ultimately in our box account, the columns will go client, name of the task, description of the task, and then status. Just going back into my search option. So one other important part of this step is to limit what we want to be added into our bucket. So at this point, we need to add conditions to this query so that we aren't bringing all tasks into this report. And for our specific scenario right here, we need to dictate the status. And what we want to do is we want to use when the status is complete. So I'm going to use the is selection, and then I'm going to select the option complete. And those options are dictated off the status field in the application in QuickBase. And that's it for this step. The next thing we need to do is we need to indicate what we want to do for each section each time QuickBase finds a record that meets our criteria. And from here, we are going to go into this for each section. And for each section, for each record it finds in step B, we need to tell QuickBase or pipelines what we want to do with those records. So at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to go to our bucket channel again. And we are going to go again to the pipeline rows, and we are going to use the add row action. So what this is doing is it's going to add a row to our report every single time a record is found. And we need to indicate which pipeline row we need this to be added to. And so we're going to use our bucket pipeline row from step A. So that's just indicating which bucket report we want to add these records to. And now we are going to indicate which fields from our previous step, step B, we want to be matching up to our bucket columns in our temporary table in the background. So at this point, I'm going to match up these fields with the fields from our records in step B, which are our quick base records. So I'm going to take name, drag it over to my name. I'm going to take status and drag it over to status. And then I'll scroll down and I'll find client, match it up with our client field, and then description, match it up with our description. And it's really important to remember to grab these from the right step. So in this step right here, we are saying we want to grab all these fields from the step in which we are querying QuickBase. And that's it for this step. Our next step, which we'll do in our step D, we want to prepare our bucket table to be downloaded to CSV. So again, from our bucket channel, I'm going to use the action of download CSV. And at this point, I also indicate which bucket table I want to download to CSV. And in this instance, we're going to use the one that we set up in step A of this pipeline. And that's it for that step. Now, our final step, or second to last step in this pipeline, is to upload our file into our Box account. So this is where I'll be going into our Box channel, and I'll be going into the File section. And what I'll be able to do here is I'm going to use the action upload file in. Why this action is better than, or can be more useful than, using the upload file is that at this point, I don't need to indicate I don't need a separate step to call out which folder I'm looking for in my Box account, and then another step to say upload a file in that folder in my Box account. With this one action, I'm able to call out the folder in my Box account as well as upload a file in that folder. So in this instance, I've already linked this pipeline to my Box account. So this is again where you would connect to your Box account. And then in this folder field, I'm going to put out the name of the folder which I created in my Box account, which is simple enough as QuickBase. So again, that's going to be your exact match of the folder in which you need this file to be uploaded in. Our next step is to actually name this file that we're going to be uploading. So an important thing to recognize when we're using this is that with Box in particular, it doesn't allow you to save multiple files with the same name. So we want to have this pipeline name this file intuitively for every time this runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some Jinja formatting, where again, you can find some useful Jinja tips and tricks in our help with the question mark up in the top right corner of the screen, and find out some Jinja techniques. I'm going to use it to just call out the date and time that this pipeline is running. So I'm doing time.now and then the date in the format of month, day, year. Before we leave this naming convention, we actually have to indicate what the extension is. So this is the really important part of this entire pipeline. because we want to make sure that it downloads in CSV format. So at the end of the name, I need to put .csv. Finally, we need to indicate what the URL that we're using. So we're going to take the URL that we prepared in the previous step and put that into the URL. So that download URL option, drag and drop right into our URL form. And that's it for the creation of this pipeline. Our final step before we can actually run this is we want to actually schedule it. So for our specific use case, the leadership wants to have this done every week at the end of the week. So we'll be doing this at Friday at 5 p.m. And you can also see that it lets you go into military time. So 1700 hours will be 5 o'clock, and it's giving you time zone right here. And now we will schedule the pipeline. So for our purposes, we are going to run this pipeline now just to make sure it works. So at the top, you always have the ability to click Run Pipeline, and that's what we're going to do. And with all pipelines, it gives you the steps that are being run while it's happening. So our first step, again, define a table. Our step B, it found 6 records in our task table that matched our criteria of the status equaling complete. And then as we scroll through, it then, for each one of those records, it added a row within our bucket table. So we'll have 6 of these. We then have 2 generated CSV. So one's, again, the async pipe, and then the async pipe result. So this is the one that actually creates the URL that we then used in our create a file in step, which finally pushes that file into our Box account. And we can see that the pipeline finished. So finally, we'll jump right over to my Box account. We can see I have my QuickBase folder here. I'm going to go right into it. And now we can see that I have the file that we just generated in CSV format with the naming of the current date that this pipeline runs. We can click right into it, and then this is the format in which your CSV will be viewed. So you can now take this and import it, download it, and import it into our other platform to make sure that we're tracking all of the goals for our remote employees. Great. And now, just want to again make sure that everybody knows that we'll be sending a link with the review this session in the chat. And now it's time for our live Q&A.